What's up guys? I have been a challenger player since set 3 and in this video I'm going to be giving you a concise explanation on how I think you should be playing on the current patch. So currently, I believe that the AP tree is significantly stronger than the AZ tree. The reason why is because the level 8 comps you have access to are Disco Dazzlers, KDA, and Executioner Karthus. And what the good thing is about these two comps is that it gives you access to Akali, which is a great holder for your AZ items. Also, I think that the super capped out version of the AP boards are a lot stronger than the AZ versions because you have access to Sona and Ziggs. I think Jhin and Lucian are definitely not as strong as this combo right now. So I would personally default towards AP, but if you do get AZ items, there are a few really strong AZ comps you can play as well, but they're mostly going to be reroll comps. Some reroll comps you want to look out for include Reroll Punk, Jazz Misfortune, and Reroll Country. I think Kate and Ezreal are not very strong as 4-cost carries right now, and although Lucian and Jhin could still win you games, it's really hard to get to them because their mid and late game are kind of weak. So in the S tier, we have Jazz and both of the Bill Gates boards. In the A tier, we have Disco Dazzlers, Pentakill, Karthus, KDA Ari, and Ezreal and Caitlyn Flex. I just left this in here because you need some kind of level 8 AZ comp that you want to play. For the reroll comps that you want to look out for, which are all really strong, we have Reroll Katarina, Reroll Annie, and Reroll Country. I also included a list of what I think are some of the strongest augments you can take right now, a general econ guide on how to play the level 8 and level 9 comps, and some of the early game, mid game, and late game headliners you want to look out for. If you find this stock useful, feel free to follow me on Twitch, and let's jump right into the comps. So the first comp I'm going to be covering is going to be Superfans Jazz. So there are a few reasons why this comp is really strong right now. If you look at what Jazz does, it gives your team a ton of extra stats based on how many active, non-unique traits that you have. And one of the things in this set is that there are 4 units that are extremely cheap that give you 4 active traits total that also give your headliner a free item. If you just combo this front line with your 2 Jazz units and a random Kaisa, you basically get a million different traits that Jazz will give you for such a low investment into your board. So this whole board probably costs like only 20 gold, which is actually insane for how strong this board you get. If you get the augment, that's Jazz baby. You could actually just hard force this comp from stage 2-1 and you're probably guaranteed like a top 3. Because you don't actually even need the MF3 if you have that augment. But otherwise, generally, when you're playing this comp, you're usually either looking for a Bard Chosen or a Misfortune Chosen that gives you Jazz, the Jazz +1. So if you find a Bard Chosen, you want to go for 3-star Bard, you slow roll at level 6, and you basically get the free Adaptive Helm from the headliner item, and then the 2 items you want are going to be Shojin +1, I just put JG. But for Misfortune, the free headliner item you get is going to be Deathblade, and in that case, you want to be putting Gwynsu's and Last Whisper on her instead. You basically, if you're playing for Misfortune, you want to level to 7 and then roll down for the Misfortune Chosen. And then afterwards, you scout the lobby. If you're contested, then you could just push levels and you could go 8 or 9 and just play probably something like Lucian for extra Jazz. And then you could play Ziggs because Ziggs is just a strong unit. Also gives you Dazzler. Gives you an extra trait for your Jazz buff as well. But yeah, that's basically the comp. There's not much to it. Next comp on the list is going to be Reroll Country. So for this comp, I think it's kind of a little less strong than Misfortune because it kind of relies on you to hit Urgot and Samira, but it's still very good and can win out a lot of games if you hit. You could play towards this comp if in the early game you get dropped like an early Urgot or Samira and you get like a Country Tahm Kench. In that case, you'll have a very strong early game and you'll be able to easily transition into this comp at level 7. Otherwise, I would only play this comp if you find like a lot of AD items and then at level 7 during your roll down, you find like a Country Samira or a Country Urgot, and you're uncontested. In that case, you could play towards this comp. So for this comp, you want to slow roll at level 7. The 2 main units you want to 3-star are going to be Urgot, Samira. You could also be looking for Set, Amumu, and Vex, but these units are not as important, but I would probably try to pick up one of either Amumu or Set to try and 3-star, because you need someone to put all of your tank items on. Itemization wise, Samira really likes Last Whisper, IE, and GS. Urgot's items are a lot more flexible. You sort of just slap on all of your remaining items on him and he's still going to do a shitload of damage. So for example, a pretty decent combo is going to be BT, GS, Stark's Gauge. You could also flex in Titans. You could also flex in Deathblade, Red Buff, pretty much anything. Urgot is a very flexible item user. So yeah, after you just hit these units, you could go 8. and just play like a random +1. So next comp on the list is going to be Reroll Punk. So there are two different ways you can play into this. The first way is if you find a Jinx chosen. The other way is if you find a Twitch chosen. You generally only want to itemize one of these two units. Don't itemize both. So basically, if you find an early Jinx and you feel like you're really close to like a 3-star Vi, 3-star Jinx, you could try to commit to this comp early. And the way to commit to this comp is you want to 5 lose streak into the first neutral round while spending your free 1 gold reroll every turn to pick up all of the Punk units. And then at level 4, 8 out of 10 EXP, you want to send it at level 4 for a 3-star Jinx. And then afterwards, you could just push levels, go level 6 at 3-2, and then slow roll every turn for this exact board while spending your 1 gold free reroll every turn on your Punk. Itemization wise, Jinx really likes Guinsoo's Last Whisper +1. The +1 could be anything, Deathblade, IE, Nashor's is fine, GS is fine as well. And if you're playing around the Twitch instead, this is assuming you find a Twitch chosen instead of the Jinx. You want to itemize Twitch in a very similar fashion. So Guinsoo's, Runan's, Last Whisper, GS, Nashor's, all pretty good items on Twitch. And all of your tank items really want to go on your Pantheon. So typical tank items are stuff like Asterix, Declaw, Bramble, stuff like that. And then these two units, if you find them, good for you. Otherwise, the Pantheon and your main carry are the only units that really matter. So on to the level 8 boards. One of the level 8 boards that you could default to is going to be the Akali and Karthus board. This board is really strong. It plays around 3 of the Superfan units, and then you just primary carry your Karthus and secondary carry your Akali. The headliners you want to look out for on your level 8 roll down is going to be your Akali and your Karthus. I think the best ones are going to be Executioner or Pentakill. I think KDA is the worst one because if you find a KDA Akali, generally you actually don't want to be itemizing the Karthus. You want to just be looking for an Ahri and putting all of your AP items on your Ahri instead. But this would be the default level 7 board. You have 4 Superfan giving one of your main carries a free item and a lot of Omnivamp, and then you put all of your remaining items on the other secondary carry. So depending on who your chosen is, so like for example, if you find like a Pentakill chosen for Karthus, you just want to play like a 5th Pentakill unit. So for example, if you find a Yorick, you just play like a random Yorick and your board is fucking giga strong. If you don't find the Yorick, you just put in like a random Viego or something. But if you don't find the Pentakill chosen, Executioner is okay as well. So you would just play like a random Vex or a random Samira, and it'll give your Karthus and your Akali a lot more damage. One of the spats that you want to be looking out for in this comp is going to be the Pentakill spat. You basically just want to put the Pentakill spat on your Akali, and then that is going to make your Karthus and your Akali a lot stronger. And you can just slash in a 5th unit like Yorick for 5 Pentakill. Itemization wise, you just want all of your tank items on either your Mordekaiser or your Nico, whoever you 2-star first. Akali really likes all of your AD full damage items. She's also pretty good with stuff like BT and Titans as well. So you go like you go IE Hodge +1. You also go BT Titans +1. Either way works fine. And then Karthus just like Shojin plus pure AP. Itemization really depends on who your headliner is because you usually get the free +1 item from the Superfan bonus. But you just want to distribute your items in a way where both of them could do damage. Next comp is going to be the KDA board. The KDA board works pretty similarly to the Akali Karthus board. The only difference is that you're going to be playing Akali, or the only difference is you're going to be playing Ahri instead of Karthus. So on your level 8 roll down for AP, you want to flex between picking up all the Ahris and the Karthus, and whoever you hit first, you want to play towards that specific comp. So itemization wise, Akali works the same, i.e. Hodge +1 or BT Titans +1. Nico takes all of the tank items, or your Echo, and Ahri really likes blue buff Gunblade +1. So depending on your headliner, there are a few different ways you could play around this level 8 board. So if you get the KDA headliner, you just play a 7th KDA unit, you'll get 7 KDA. If you get Executioner, you don't have to play like a 2nd Executioner for Akali to do extra damage. And then the Spellweaver one is not the greatest. Just the only reason why is because, in my opinion, the Spellweaver breakpoint between 3 and 5 is not actually that much. Like, if you see, it only gives like your team 15 extra AP, and in the grand scheme of things, the only people that really use AP are going to be your Ahri, Seraphine, maybe your Akali. So the 5 breakpoint is like not really that good. You're generally better off just playing a random high value 8th unit. But yeah, otherwise, you just, after you hit your board, you just go level 9, and then you can look into playing around Ziggs, Sona if you have the money. So another level 8 AP comp you could play is going to be around TF, Disco Dazzlers. So for this comp, there are a few Chosens you want to be looking out for. You're looking for Disco TF or Dazzler TF. You also look for any of the Blitzcrank Chosens like Disco, Sentinel. And then if you don't find these two and you find like a Zac is fine as well. So I think the best one is going to be hitting Disco TF. This lets you play 5 Disco and then you just play this exact board. And if you don't find the Ziggs, you don't have to play 4 Dazzler. You just play like the 3 Spellweaver variant instead where you play Sona. If you find a Dazzler TF instead, you usually don't want to play Disco. You instead probably drop one of the Dazzler units and play Sona instead for 3 Spellweaver. Gives your whole team a little bit of AP. And then you put all of your tank items on your Blitzcrank or Zac, whoever you 2-star first, and all of your remaining AP items that don't fit on TF onto your Ziggs and Sona. Once you stabilize at level 8 with this board, you usually try to go 9 and play into the level 9 AP Bill Gates boards, which plays around Ziggs and Sona and Lucian and all of the frontline units like Alawi. It's a pretty easy transition as long as you're stable at level 8. Itemization wise, TF really likes Gunblade, Shiv +1. For your third item, you could go for Guardbreaker, you could go for Guinsoo's, Shojin, GS, Nashor's Tooth is fine. You can also go Shojin +2 as well. It really depends on your items and how you want to distribute them among your Ziggs, Sona, and TF. So on to the Bill Gates boards. So here is level 9 AP board that you should generally look to play into if you were playing like a level 8 AP board. Your main carries in this board are going to be Ziggs, Sona, and your main tank is going to be Alawi. And all of your remaining AD items could either go on your Lucian or your Jhin, depending on who you hit first. Basically, itemization-wise, Ziggs really likes Shojin +2, and then Sona really likes Shojin as well, to be honest. She likes Guinsoo, she likes any attack speed items, and then Alawi just takes all of your tank items. There are a lot of different variations you can play, but it really just depends on who you 2-star first. So like, for example, let's say like you don't find this Lucian, but you find like a Jhin. If you're playing around Jhin, usually you just want to play around Misfortune because this will give you 2 Jazz and it will also give you 2 Big Shot, and your main carry is going to be Jhin, which will hold all of your AD items. Again, the other option is if you find a lot of Lucians, you just drop these 2 and play Lucian instead. For your tank, you just put in whoever you 2-star. So for example, 2 Bruisers right here. You also have 2 Sentinels. If you don't find like Blitzcrank, you could play like 2 Guardians instead. So it could be like Thresh, Yorick. The traits don't matter in the grand scheme of things. You really just want to throw in whoever you 2-star in the late game because the legendary units, the moment you 2-star them, they just become really strong on your current board. So the AD Bill Gates comps is very similar. The front line is almost the exact same. The only difference is your back line. So because you're playing around AZ, chances are you probably have like an MF and a Caitlyn on your board. And the 2 main carries you're going to be playing around are going to be Jhin and Lucian. So Jhin, itemization-wise, he really likes 1 mana item plus 2 damage. So for example, blue buff / Shojin, and then you could go IE Gunblade. You could also go triple AD item, and that's fine as well. The only thing about Jhin is like, I think you could really only play Jhin after you already like 2-starred most of your board. Because how Jhin works is he scales off how much bench space that you have. So for example, if you're still holding onto like all your pairs, like Kiana pair, Zac pair, and then Echo pair, Blitzcrank pair, and then you're playing a Jhin, and even though he's 2-starred, you're only going to get like 3 of like the thingies that shoot out damage, and then like your 2-star Jhin isn't actually going to do anything. So like playing around this Jhin before having like a fully complete board kind of fucks up your transition. So you really only want to play around the Jhin after you already like maxed out like the rest of your board and want to itemize Lucian first instead. Itemization for Lucian, you just throw all of like the slammed AD items you already made on your Caitlyn or Misfortune, whoever you were previously playing around. So Last Whisper, GS, Red Buff is fine, IE is fine as well, Gunblade is also good as well. And then yeah, there are a few other variations that exist. So like for example, you don't have to play this Caitlyn if you already have the what was this guy again? He was a rapid fire chosen, so you just drop this Caitlyn and then just play like a random Bard that gives you 3 Jazz. And if you're playing Bard, this also opens you up to playing around Ziggs, which is like the most broken 5-cost unit in the game right now. And then you can just slap all of like your remaining AP items on your Ziggs instead. So yeah, it's pretty much a very flex board at level 9, just depends on who you hit. Another reroll comp that you could play is going to be Reroll Annie. This is a very strong reroll comp that you can hit at level 4 and usually gets you a top 4. The chosen you want to look out for is going to be Emo Annie. The Spellweaver one is not as good in my opinion, and you usually want to play this with 3 Superfan, which always gives your Annie a Shojin, and the 2 other items you want on her is going to be Shojin and Nashers. This is going to give you a setup where she's just going to cast every single second and then will melt their team instantly. The front line you generally want to play for this comp is just going to be 4 Guardian. Reason why is because Kennen is a Guardian and then Amumu is also a Guardian, and this opens you up to playing 4 Emo with Vex as well. If you have like a lot of AD items, a good unit you could play is going to be Akali. She's a very good holder of all your AP items, and it gives you Executioner and it gives you 3 KDA, which is a pretty nice buff towards your whole team. Otherwise, according to stats, the highest win rate trait with Annie is going to be playing around 6 Guardian. So in this case, you just play around 2 more Guardian units, so Pantheon and Yorick. And then this is going to give you an insanely tanky frontline, and your Annie will just, in the end, kill off everything. And you can look towards pivoting off the Superfan for more high-value units later. There is another variation where you could play around a Spellweaver instead. So you don't play around 4 Guardian in this case. You just play around stuff like Ari. Let me pull up the units. You play around Echo, Sona, Ari. And then this is what your level 9 board would sort of look like. And then you're duo carrying your Annie, your Ari, and your Sona. The final reroll comp I'll be covering is going to be Reroll Katarina. I think this comp is super slept on, but it's actually really, really strong if you hit the chosen Katarina at level 4 or 5. So the chosen you want to look for in this comp is going to be Crowd Diver. It's really important because getting a chosen Crowd Diver enables you to hit 4 Crowd Diver without hitting the Zed. The Zed usually only comes when you're level 8, so this makes the comp a lot more consistent and will save you a lot more HP during your level 6 roll down. The exact level 6 board you want to roll down for is going to be something like this, but you usually only want to commit to this comp if you find like a chosen Crowd Diver Katarina early. Itemization wise, you want JG and Hodge on her, and then you get the free 3rd item from Headliner, which is going to be Shojin. You slow roll at level 6 for 3-star Katarina. She's really the only unit that matters. The other units don't really matter too much. And once you hit her, you'll be able to level to 9 and then just play 2 additional Crowd Divers, which is going to be Zed and Kiana. All your tank items are just going to go on your Nico. If you're close to like hitting a 3-star Nico, yeah, you could go for it. I don't think the Yone is really that valuable. It's going to grief your econ. You really just want the Katarina, and then you just want to push levels. That's basically it for Reroll Katarina. It's pretty strong. So the last comp I'll be covering is just going to be the AD board. It's going to be either Caitlyn or Ezreal. I think these 2 comps are definitely a lot weaker than the AP comps, but I believe the way you want to play them is to somehow fit Jazz into them, because Jazz is the broken trait. So you basically just find like a Caitlyn headliner, you play the 4 Superfans plus Echo frontline, and then you just stick into Jazz, because Lucian is a Jazz unit and rapid fire. And then you just play like a random Ziggs to give you 2 Dazzler, and then you just pray for a top 4. The other variation to this is like if you find like an Ezreal, you could again stick into Jazz just because the other Jazz unit is going to be Misfortune. And if you're playing Misfortune, just throw in a 4th big shot, which is Kaisa. This also gives you KDA, and this is both of these are relatively, in my opinion, pretty cheap boards because the front line is just 3 Superfans plus Echo, and it gives your team a ton of stats based on how Jazz works. The goal for these comps is really just to play for a top 4, but if you're very healthy, you could try to go level 9 with this board because it's really cheap, and then later on try to play around the Lucian and the Jhin. But generally, most of the time, if you have a lot of AD items and you're not playing Misfortune and you're not playing Samira and you're rolling down at level 8 for this comp, you're usually just playing for a 4th, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Itemization wise, you could pretty much just stick 2 random AD items on your main headliner, Caitlyn or Ezreal. So they both really like Last Whisper, IE. If you decide not to play around the frontline Superfan, you could just throw a 3rd item on them. So a 3rd item that's good for Caitlyn is going to be GS. Hodge is pretty decent as well. Deathblade. You can also throw in Red Buff as well. And then Ezreal is also pretty good with the similar items. Ezreal works pretty well with a 3rd mana item as well. So this sums up my 13.23 flex guide. If you guys enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel or followed me on Twitch. I will be streaming during this set, and I will be releasing a complete headliner guide. Not really a guide on like the best headliners to take, but more of how you should approach the mechanic, when you should swap out your headliner mid and late game, and what you should be thinking about when you're rolling down and what headliners to look for. That's all for me, and I'll see you guys next time.